With these two things and a push 2, this is essentially what a push 3 is, right? After like shaking out of my body out of excitement and being on the hype train and watching a ton of videos about push 3, I did realize that a lot of what push 3 is offering, I already have some version of something that gives me those features. Can we get all the features of push 3 without paying the pretty high price tag? In terms of fake currencies that just get printed out of thin air, it seems that US dollars is the most popular one, right? So let's do that. $2,000. So what I'm gonna do is go through the main features that I think are attractive about push 3 and go head to head with other things that I have right now and see where the price points are comparatively. All right, so let's talk about the standalone feature, being able to produce music away from the computer and the portability. That's a huge feature. I'd say that's probably the biggest feature that Push 3 is offering. I have Push 2 and APC40, which we'll dive into a little bit later, but this stuff has to be plugged into a computer. So the first place that most people are going to go right away in terms of comparison is like, why don't I just use Push 2 or Push 1 for that matter with a laptop and an interface? All right, so I got a laptop and an interface, as you can see, right? I've got a MacBook Air and I've got this Scarlett 2i4. And this is what I've been doing if ever I want to get some serious production done on the go. This is essentially what a Push 3 is, right? Is all these things together. Okay, so a laptop, you're looking at least $1,000. The only caveat with that is that with a laptop and an audio interface, you can run the full version of Ableton. Okay, you don't have the limited version of what Ableton is running on Push 3, so you can use VSTs, you can finish music and mix it, etc. Okay, one thing to consider. All right, next we talking about MPE, MIDI polyphonic expression, getting the depth and like, you know what I'm saying, some energy into your performances, almost as if you're playing a real instrument. It actually, what it does is it makes controllers be real instruments, right? Because there's so many more ways for you to articulate your performances that, you know, you could just literally be a Push 3 player and that's your jam, right? And just hang out. The layout of Push 3 is very similar to Push 2 for the most part, but every pad on the Push 3 is MPE enabled. All right, so they're all like XY pads. And one thing I should mention is that Push 2 does have pressure sensitivity. So it has some MPE functionality, but it doesn't have the XY or the slide functionality. So that's what they've added. And I'm sure that they've made the pads better overall, but I love the Push 2 pads. These things are amazing. All right, but I got something that is MPE as well, right? So let's look at the Rolly light block, okay? I have a few Rolly blocks. So this thing is very similar to what a pad on the Push 3 would be. This is MPE. So if we look at Ableton here real quick, I've got a track loaded with an MPE sound, okay? Let's go back to the hands. So if I play this, depending how hard I push, it changes the sound, right? I can also slide up to a note. Right? So this thing is very expressive, and I would imagine that a Push 3 pad is very similar to this. All right, and what does this run us? So right now, $200. Out of stock though. I don't know if you can get this. You might have to get this used if you wanted this, right? But $200 for a pad, which is 4x4. So you can go to a drum block and you'll notice that this changed now. So when it's in this layout, it's exactly like a quarter of what the Push 3 might be offering you for $200. But if we're really going to be fair, right, the Push 3, just like the Push 2, has 64 pads. So if you really wanted to kind of simulate that experience, you can connect 4 of these light pads together because these things just magnet together, which is pretty dope. Schling, schling. They'll connect together and that would be pretty badass. And you could like dish out a light pad to some of your friends and like get this crazy jam going. Would you be into that if I invited you? Yo, let's get MPE action going with this. If you want 4 of these, first of all, you got to find them because they're out of stock. So you have to get them used and you'll have to pay $800. Ching, ching. Gives you a little bit of perspective of like, yo, an MPE pad, that's kind of what it would go for, right? So you got a massive one with 64. Crazy. Next, let's talk about the audio interface part. So this is a big part of the Push 3, in my opinion, is that it has a built-in audio interface, right? So it acts as if you had a laptop and an interface that I showed you earlier. It has 2 balanced input jacks, 2 balanced outputs. So 2 ins, 2 outs, a headphone jack, which is also 2 extra outs if you think about it, stereo pair, and ADAT. Okay, so basically you have 2 inputs and 4 outputs to play with, and you have expandable ADAT ability. ADAT ability. I like that. All right, but the truth is that isn't anything crazy for an audio interface. Something like a Focusrite 2i4 does very much the same thing, except it maybe doesn't have a few of the extra features like the CV out or the extra USB port or the ADAT expandability. Or ADATability, as I've said. Audio interface like this. Ching ching, $260. Sound effects. Enhancing the video with clink clink. Get it? Cool. So those are the 3 main features that I wanted to cover. But there's one other thing that they added to Push 3, which is a huge game changer. The only thing is that I've already come up with a solution for it alternatively. Let me talk to you about it. With Push 2, you're either in note mode where you can play an instrument. Fantastic. Or you're in session view, right? Where you can launch clips. So for example, let's launch this first one. And now this clip is playing, which is that drum beat, right? And if I wanted to, I could add another clip by maybe hitting this one. 3, add it, yeah, bass. And the tricky thing with Push 2, the kind of, the unfortunate thing is that if you're playing stuff here, you can't really launch a new scene of clips or stop a clip or whatever, do something in session view as you're playing, right? You kind of be like playing something and then move over here, trigger something and then move back and then go back to playing. But in the Push 3, let me show you the visual so you can understand. All right, so I found the little button. See this little new button they added with the 3 lines? This is the See Session View button, and you can basically trigger scenes and clips on the screen while you're playing the pads, which is super handy. So you could be like jamming along here, hit that view, and then you'll see your clips up here. And you could be like launchy launch, stoppy stop, do crazy stuff as you're playing. Right? So that's really cool. I think that's a really important feature to increase the performability and the seamlessness of that. However, you'll notice that I have this whole other thing right here, right? For that exact reason. A Push 2 with an APC 40, if you don't really care about the standaloneness, is going to be covering that and a zillion things more, because with Push 2 here, if I hit the mix button, yeah, I can control the volume of these different tracks, and I can go to the sends. I can control the sends, and I can control the pan, right? But in this view, then I can't see my device anymore and these effects, right? So I have to toggle back and forth, right? But with these 2 together, it's like I have session view right here. You know what I'm saying? Like this is there, and then this stays here. So now I can like play here and trigger stuff blah-de-de-da. All I'm saying is that being in note view and being able to play stuff while you're controlling the volume here and maybe sending it to a reverb is very handy. Let's do this head to head. So Push 3 on one side, standalone version, $2,000 US. Ching, 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 ching. We're gonna need a Push 2, $700. Cha-ching, ching, ching. We're gonna need an audio interface, $250. Cha-cha-cha-ching. We're at $950. A Rolly light pad block. All right, if we want some MPE action to play around, just something to have a taste of what maybe Push 3 might be giving us. That is another $200. Cha-ching, ching. $1,150. It's close, right? But what are we missing to make up with all this other stuff? What the Push 3 is offering is the computer, the built-in computer that it has. So to get a decent computer, right, MacBook Air that has 8 gigs of RAM, just like what the Push does. This probably has a better processor. It's a laptop, so you can do all other sorts of things on it. You can run the full version of Ableton. You can do work, email, you can get distracted, you can watch YouTube, etc., 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 etc. There's a lot of advantages that a laptop has, obviously, as an investment versus a thing that's dedicated only for music, but we're considering the context of music right now. Get it? So you need a computer. So $1,000, ching, ching, ching. So where are we at? $2,150. US compared to 2000 US. Pretty damn close. So is it worth it? Is Push 3 worth paying $2,000 when you could pay $1,000 for a nice laptop? You could get Push 2, right, for $700. Maybe you don't care about the light block. You get the APC 40. You got these two bad boys. You got a laptop, right? You got an audio interface, and you're sacrificing a few things in terms of, you guessed it, portability. It would be very tricky for you to take all this stuff with you with your laptop and audio interface if you just want to make some beats on your couch and chill, right? But hey, if you're doing a live performance, or if you just don't mind bringing that much stuff with you, I mean, you can get a lot of the stuff that you want with all of that stuff and more. And the thing is, you can run the full version of Ableton, right, when you have the computer. Hey, yo, what's up? Editing Alex here. And there's something that I forgot to mention that I definitely want to mention, is that Ableton offers both a standalone version of Push 3 as well as a non-standalone version. So a version of Push 3 that acts like Push 2, so it has to be plugged into a computer to be able to work, and it doesn't have the standalone capabilities. But they did something super amazing, which I applaud them for doing, is that they gave you the option to be able to expand your Push 3, if it's the computer connected version, to a standalone version later with what they call an upgrade kit. And you're not actually paying more for this. I just wanted to mention that because instead of getting a Push 2 with a light pad block or a Push 2 and an APC 40, you could decide to go for the Push 3 non-standalone version instead and get the advantages of everything we talked about without the standalone version of the Push 3. The other thing I want to mention is that everything we talked about does not include actually purchasing an Ableton license at all. So whether it's the standard version or the suite version, whether you're going the laptop and connected Push 3 route, or you're going laptop with other MIDI controllers route, or you're going Push 3 standalone route, you still have to invest in an Ableton license if you don't have one already. All right, so let me know what you think about Push 3. Do you plan on getting it? Do you think it's just like a lot of hype? Do you think it's too expensive? Do you think it's going to be like an instrument of the future and people are going to like play this thing busking and like, you know what I mean, start bands with this thing, and there's gonna be like legendary Push 3 riffs and legendary Push 3 performers and stuff? I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments down below. If you want to learn how to use Push 2, which all those skill sets will transfer to Push 3, I've created a playlist that goes over music theory in depth and how to play Push 2 like an instrument. I've also created a quick video that's how to learn Push 2 in 20 minutes. So I'll link those in the cards above. You guys have been real. I'm super stoked. Push 3. Hey, one day, my own day, my friend, I will have a Push 3 and I will be rocking it in the forest and making forest Push 3 videos with a guitar and a Push 3 and making sure that the battery doesn't die like my camera.